Not many musicians are able to mix pop, folk, and country music together while also writing deep and meaningful lyrics. But American singer and songwriter John Denver did exactly that, and he did it with ease. In the 1970s, he became one of the most well-known acoustic artists, releasing songs that would go on to become classics, such as Take Me Home, Country Roads, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and Annie's Song. The last of these was written for his wife at the time, Annie Denver. Now, at 78 years old, Annie Denver has finally confirmed the truth behind many rumors about her famous ex-husband. Her story has helped bring clarity to parts of John Denver's life that fans had long wondered about. Most people know Annie Denver because of her connection to the music legend, but she has her own accomplishments too. She worked as a school commissioner and also appeared on television, showing she had a successful life outside of the spotlight. Annie was born as Annie Martell on September 6, 1946, in Minnesota, USA. Her parents were Jim and Norma Martell, and she grew up with 3 siblings, Linda, Terry, and Ben, in a Christian household. She went to local schools and later attended Aldous College in St. Peter. It was there that she met John Denver, who was then a part of a musical group called the Chad Mitchell Trio. This first meeting happened in 1966. Annie was in her second year of college, and John was immediately drawn to her. They met again a few months later, and this time, something more meaningful began. In a 2022 interview on the Mobituaries with Mo podcast, Annie shared more details about their first meeting. She said Denver had just performed with the Mitchell Trio and later played guitar in a small group putting on a fun little musical. Annie was part of the stage crew, carrying signs between acts. She even mentioned that John remembered what she wore that day: blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and penny loafers. They began writing letters to each other, and their connection quickly grew stronger. In less than a year, after just 9 months of dating, they got engaged and were married on June 9, 1967. Their love was quick but deep, and that bond would eventually inspire one of John's most famous songs, Annie's Song. That song introduced Annie to the world and became a symbol of their love. What made it special was that it reflected everything Denver cared about at that time: his passion for music, his love for Annie, and his connection to nature. Annie recently revealed that even after all these years, she still tears up whenever she hears it. Another favorite song of hers is Perhaps Love, which John performed with famous opera singer Placido Domingo. While many people thought Annie's Song came from a romantic moment, the truth is a little more emotional. In 1971, a key year for John Denver's career, he released not only Take Me Home, Country Roads, but also began writing other songs that defined his musical journey, including Annie's Song. Around this time, he and Annie went camping with friends in Aspen, Colorado. Being a nature lover, John fell in love with the beautiful landscape there. The trip didn't just inspire his music, it changed his life. He and Annie decided to make Aspen their home, where they would eventually raise their family. In 1973, after one of their arguments, John came home feeling peaceful after they had made up. Still feeling good, he went skiing. While riding the Ajax ski lift on Aspen Mountain, inspiration struck. As Annie later recalled, the entire song came to him during that ride. He came back home and wrote Annie's Song, a piece of music that captured not just his love for her, but the beauty he saw around him, and the peace he had found in that moment. This story shows that behind the music and fame, there was a real relationship filled with ups and downs, just like any other. But out of those moments, both the hard and the joyful, came songs that touched millions and still live on today. As soon as John Denver got home from skiing that day, he wrote the song down. In just 10 minutes, it was finished. At first, it was meant to be a love song, a heartfelt gift from him to Annie. But over time, the song came to mean more than that. For John, it started to feel like a prayer, something deep and spiritual. Annie Denver later shared that it's comforting to know this song remains as lasting proof of the love they once shared. Even though their story didn't have a fairy tale ending, that song continues to remind people of the connection they had. The couple didn't have biological children, but they chose to build a family together through adoption. They adopted a son, Zachary John, and a daughter, Anna Kate. Both children were dearly loved by John and Annie. Sadly, their marriage didn't last. In 1982, after 15 years together, they filed for divorce. Like many relationships, there were different reasons behind the breakup, and both John and Annie had their own perspectives on what went wrong. From John Denver's point of view, he believed his career played a big role in the growing distance between them. He admitted that his success and the demands of his work often kept him away from home. He said during a 1983 interview on The Russell Harty Show that over the last 4 to 6 years of their marriage, they began to drift apart. He explained that being apart for long periods made it difficult to reconnect, and when they did come back together, it was hard to fit back into each other's lives. The busy schedule, the constant traveling for concerts, and the pressures of fame made things even harder. On the other hand, Annie believed that their problems came from how young and unprepared they were when John became famous. His sudden rise to stardom overwhelmed her. She felt lost and unsure of who she was as his fame grew. She said that everything that came with his celebrity status made her feel like she no longer had her own identity. Despite their different views and the end of their marriage, the two parted on good terms. Annie chose to remain single after the divorce, while John eventually remarried. Annie stayed respectful and kind toward her ex-husband, even after they went their separate ways. There have even been rumors that Annie Martell had passed away, but those aren't true. She's still alive and living in Colorado, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Though their time together as a couple was relatively short, the love they once shared, the family they built, and the peaceful way they separated make their story stand out. It's rare to see two people part ways with so much grace, and Annie's continued kindness toward John even after the divorce shows just how strong and genuine their connection once was. This part of the story might surprise many people, especially those who know about the controversies and scandals that later surrounded John Denver, particularly at the time of his death, which we'll discuss shortly. Since we've already talked about Annie Martell Denver, it makes sense to also take a closer look at the life of her famous ex-husband, John Denver. John Denver was born on December 31, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico. His birth name was Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. He would later become a legendary figure in American country and folk music, known to the world simply as John Denver. His mother was Emma Louise, and his father, Captain Henry John Dutch Deutschendorf Sr., was a highly respected and decorated pilot with a notable military career. John had a difficult relationship with his father, who he described as strict and emotionally distant. Because of his father's job in the Air Force, the family moved frequently, making it hard for young John to settle down, make lasting friends, or feel truly at home anywhere. He was naturally introverted, and the constant relocations made it even harder for him to feel connected to his surroundings. The first time the family stayed in one place for a significant period was from 1951 to 1959 in Tucson, Arizona. This period gave him some stability, and during this time, something happened that would change his life forever. When he was 11 years old, his grandmother gave him an acoustic guitar. He quickly taught himself how to play, and this instrument became his outlet for expression. His passion for music grew stronger with time, and by the time he reached college, he was performing at local clubs and small events. Initially, he performed using his real name. But that changed when Randy Sparks, the founder of a folk group called the New Christy Minstrels, suggested he use a stage name that was easier for people to remember. That's when he became John Denver, choosing Denver because he loved Colorado and the Rocky Mountains. While attending Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, Denver studied architecture. But music continued to pull at his heart. He not only played guitar but also sang in a local folk group. Eventually, in 1963, he made a life-changing decision to leave college and move to Los Angeles to chase his dream of becoming a full-time musician. During his early years in LA, Denver performed in small folk clubs and slowly began to make a name for himself. In 1965, he got his big break when he replaced Chad Mitchell in the well-known group, the Chad Mitchell Trio. After some time as the lineup changed, the group was renamed to reflect its new members, John Denver, David Boise, and Michael Johnson, becoming Denver, Boise, and Johnson. Not long after, Denver decided to pursue a solo career. He signed with RCA Records and released his debut album titled Rhymes and Reasons in 1969. That album marked the beginning of his rise as one of the most beloved singer-songwriters of the 1970s. His music blended folk, country, and pop in a unique way, and his heartfelt lyrics and soothing voice helped him connect with listeners around the world. Before John Denver became widely known, he took the initiative to self-produce a recording of his original songs. One of those early songs was titled, Babe, I Hate to Go. This song caught the attention of music producer Milt Oken, who saw its potential. With Oken's help, the song was reworked and eventually became the famous Leaving on a Jet Plane. The folk trio Peter, Paul and Mary recorded it and made it a hit, topping the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Denver also released his own version, which reached number 1 on the US Cashbox chart in December 1969. What many people don't realize is that John Denver was heavily involved in promoting his own music during the early stages of his career. He went on a tour through the Midwest, performing at small venues, many of them for free. He even gave free concerts and walked into local radio stations to ask for a chance to play his songs live on air. Because he was the original songwriter behind Leaving on a Jet Plane, many stations were curious enough to give him airtime. These small but persistent efforts helped him build a strong and loyal fan base, one that continued to support him for years to come. While his first album Rhymes and Reasons helped launch his solo career, it was his second album, Poems, Prayers and Promises, released in 1971, that truly made him a star. This album was a commercial breakthrough, with the hit song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, becoming an anthem for many. Part of this success came from the efforts of his new manager, Jerry Weintraub, who organized a strong radio airplay campaign that helped Denver reach a much wider audience. As his popularity grew in the early 1970s, Denver released more hits that would go on to define his career. These included Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and of course, Annie's Song. Weintraub also worked hard to get John Denver on television. He appeared as a guest on various shows and soon started hosting his own specials. One of the most successful was Rocky Mountain Christmas, a holiday special that aired on ABC and attracted over 60 million viewers, becoming the network's highest-rated show at the time. Denver's fame continued to grow internationally. He even had his own BBC series in the UK called The John Denver Show. His talent, charm, and clean-cut image made him popular with a wide range of audiences. During this time, he received many prestigious awards, including multiple Grammy Awards and American Music Awards, recognizing his influence in the music industry. However, as the late 1970s approached, his popularity as a mainstream artist started to decline. Instead of chasing hits, John Denver turned his attention toward more meaningful causes. He became active in humanitarian work and environmental conservation. He performed at fundraising events and supported local projects, including the Aspen Camp School for the Deaf. He also made a generous donation to the Aspen Valley Hospital's campaign, which aimed to raise $1.7 million. Even as his time in the spotlight began to fade, John Denver continued to use his voice and influence to make a difference, showing that his legacy was about more than just music. It was also about compassion, giving back, and caring for the world around him. John Denver didn't just use his fame to make music. He also put a lot of energy into environmental causes. He owned a beautiful 450-acre property in Aspen, Colorado, called the WinStar Land Conservancy. This wasn't just where he lived. It was a peaceful place for wildlife and a center where people could learn about the environment and conservation. It showed how deeply he cared about nature and preserving the earth for future generations. As we've mentioned, Denver's first marriage was to Annie Martell, and they were together for 15 years before divorcing. What many people don't know is that the divorce wasn't entirely peaceful. Denver once admitted that during the division of their belongings, he got so upset that he tried to cut their bed in half with a chainsaw to make a point. According to some close to the couple, this may have been in response to Annie cutting down a few trees on their Aspen property, which Denver deeply valued. The moment was extreme, but it reflected just how emotional and bitter their split had become at the time. It took some time before Denver remarried. In 1985, while in Sydney, Australia, he met actress Cassandra Delaney. They had a brief courtship and married in 1988. The next year, in May 1989, Cassandra gave birth to their daughter, Jessie Bell, and the family moved into Denver's home in Aspen. Unfortunately, this second marriage didn't last either. By 1991, the couple had separated. Cassandra later described John Denver as a vindictive bully, hinting at a troubled relationship, though the full details of their issues remain private. Many people believe that this second divorce deeply affected Denver and may have contributed to the struggles he faced in the years that followed. In 1992, he was charged with drunk driving for the first time. Just a year later, in 1993, he pleaded guilty again to drunk driving after he crashed his Porsche into a tree. As a result, he was placed on probation. Because Denver was also a licensed pilot, these legal issues impacted his ability to fly. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, told him he could only continue flying if he completely gave up drinking. But sadly, Denver wasn't able to meet their requirements. In the following year, he was officially medically disqualified from operating aircraft. This was a devastating blow, as flying was one of his greatest passions in life, second only to music and nature. Behind John Denver's gentle and kind image, he was actually dealing with a lot of personal struggles. Over time, he began using alcohol and drugs to cope with the emotional pain he was feeling. Even though he seemed confident on stage, he went through periods of deep depression and often felt insecure. He admitted that he had used LSD and marijuana, including while writing his famous song Rocky Mountain High. Some people criticized him for being a bad drunk, and for what they saw as hypocrisy, preaching peace and joy in his songs while privately battling addiction and poor decisions. Even though he didn't become a famous pilot like his father, John Denver was a skilled flyer. He had a pilot's license and spent a lot of time in the air, something he truly enjoyed. He even joined a promotional flying event for VH1. But sadly, this passion would one day lead to his tragic death. Many have wondered, how could something like this happen to a man so experienced? Was it an accident, or was something more going on? Before diving into what exactly happened, it's helpful to understand a few basics about how airplanes work. Unlike cars, if an airplane runs into trouble in the air, like a fire or engine problem, you can't just pull over. There's no place to stop, and sometimes just a bit of smoke can quickly turn into a dangerous fire. That's why aircraft are built with special safety features, including a fuel shutoff valve, which is supposed to help stop a fire and give the pilot time to safely land the plane. On October 12, 1997, John Denver was flying a Rutan Long Easy, a small, home-built aircraft, when it tragically crashed into Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove, California. He was just 53 years old. There were many questions and theories about what caused the crash. One of the biggest concerns was how the fuel selection valve was placed in the cockpit. It was behind the pilot's left shoulder, which made it very hard to reach. To access it, the pilot had to take one hand off the controls completely. That design was considered very unsafe. On top of that, the fuel gauges were also confusing. They didn't clearly show how much fuel was left, making it hard to know if the plane was about to run out. All of these design problems, combined with some safety checks Denver failed to perform, led to the crash. So while the plane's poor layout played a big role, John Denver himself had also made some mistakes. In the end, it was a tragic accident caused by a combination of bad design and missed safety steps. And sadly, he lost his life because of it. Even though his death was heartbreaking, people still remember John Denver with admiration and love. His songs and humanitarian work made a lasting difference. Just recently, his classic Take Me Home, Country Roads made it back onto the Billboard charts after being featured in a Super Bowl commercial, proving that his music still touches people's hearts today. There's even a tribute production being released on July 10th in theaters, showing how timeless and meaningful his legacy continues to be.